sent to you. So be kind to him, okay? He had to read through like a novella.
I'll post the agenda in the chat again, just so folks can follow along. This does seem like a pretty packed state TA day. We have some folks we haven't heard from before. Lots of moving parts this month. So I think with that being said, we will jump right in. First up on the agenda, we're just gonna do some of our team's announcements. First, it's that time of year. Our contracts and budgets will be being sent out hopefully tomorrow, if not early next week. The amounts are going to be pretty similar to last year's. The one thing that's changing is that last year we received merit award support funding for the entire year. This year it'll only be for 3 months. That'll be combined with the Colorado Shines quality improvement funding, the base funding. So that'll be the only difference. Otherwise, everything is the same for the 4 funding streams as you received last year. And like I said, we'll be sending that out tomorrow or early next week at the latest. So just keep your eye open for that. Our due date for them is going to be February 20th. But we'll be sending all of this out in an email, a novella email, just like the ones Emily likes to write. Second up, our SRQIP and ECC rules are going to be updated. So there's going to be an email sent out over the next few days to get comments on some of the drafts that we're working on. So that's just a heads up if you see an email about that, so you know it's coming. We have had some issues with QIPs syncing to the sugar system, as most of you know. It seems like we've gotten most of that cleaned up, but please reach out to your coordinator if you are still seeing issues with the sync. You know, a workaround learning environment always seems to be our problem child. Of course, that's where most of our QIP goals that are important to sugar lie. So you could try putting the goal in a different category, and that might help that issue. But just keep us informed if you're still experiencing issues with that sync. And every time I say that sync, I keep thinking of "Let that sink in," the stupid Along Months quote. So let that sink in, that we're still having some issues there. So let us know if you're still experiencing them. And then next, we have Alyssa, who has some wonderful, exciting news to share about our employee-based childcare grant. So take it away.
Yes. Hi, all. If you don't know me, my name is Alyssa Pappas. I am the grant manager for employer-based childcare, and we just opened our next grant round yesterday afternoon. So I will throw some links in the chat, but eligibility for this grant, this is for non-child care employers who want to open a child care center either on or very close to their facility base. So you can read through the links. There's an FAQ in there. You can find out more. I cannot answer any questions right now since the RFA is open, so please submit your questions through the vendor self-service website. And again, I will put all those links both in the agenda and send them in the chat. Thanks.
QRIS team, are there any other updates that I'm forgetting?
Just real quick on the rules, Charlie. So you guys are going to get an email probably tomorrow on the SRQIP draft. And I'm just going to ask you to take a quick 30 minutes, maybe less. It's a pretty quick read. It aligns perfectly to your current business rules that you're used to already. But if there's things that got missed in our edits, please make notes in the document I'm going to send you guys. So it'll go out to the ECC directors listed in our directory, and they can certainly pass it on to other staff for review, but we're going to have about a 1-week turnaround. The ECC rules will come after that. We're still working on getting the technical stuff updated around the statute numbers, page numbers, all that good stuff. So that's the primary changes we'll see in those. But we can also set up a hot topic call or something too, if you guys want to have more conversation around that. So anyway, be on the lookout. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen. All right. So we have some guests here, and I'm going to hand it over to Marika and Kristen, who are going to talk through some business funding support opportunities.
Thank you, Charlie. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so good to see you all. I am Kristen Ling. I'm the Program Access Administrator for our State Systems Building Initiatives Unit. I'm really excited to have our partners, Scott and Sonia, here to talk to you about some opportunities you might consider connecting your local childcare businesses with. The genesis for this conversation really came out of thinking about the emerging and expanding grants and, some of the difficulty we know that comes with the reimbursement process for providers and having to float those funding outlays until they can receive reimbursement. And so you all may recall that in December, Emily put a poll during State TA Day into the chat to see if folks would be interested in learning about some opportunities for low-cost loans or low-interest rate loans that providers might access in order to help support the interim between when they have to spend the funding and when they can receive reimbursement. And overwhelmingly, you all said you thought that could be a helpful resource to know about. And we are just so lucky to have really great partners with information about this. And I want to say, Scott Romano from Energize Colorado has been our partner for several years and has done some work with childcare businesses. And so he's excited to talk to you about that. But they have been so open to hearing about this particular situation and being able to design a solution that meets the needs of our providers. I think you'll be really excited to hear from him. And then also our colleague at OEdit, Sonia, is here to talk to you about some of the opportunities that the Office of Economic Development and International Trade have to support providers with this particular issue. So I will stop talking. I'll kick it over to Scott.
Thank you so much, Kristen. And I want to introduce my colleague as well, Ryan Cobbins, who's on the call here that oversees our GAP fund. Just like the name implies, we really use our fund to fill gaps where we see them in the ecosystem. And so when we first started in 2020 deploying grants and loans on behalf of the state of Colorado to businesses that were not being served properly by some of the federal stimulus that was coming out the door, that really was the genesis of our organization, Energize Colorado. And so not totally sure how familiar everyone on this call with us is. I've just got a short deck I will share with y'all so you can learn a little bit more about us, and then really asking for your feedback and how we can build this loan program to support the childcare providers that are going to be recipients of these E&E grants most appropriately. And so if you guys can all see my screen all right, it looks like you can. I'm going to talk about who we are, what our loan program offering is, and then really finish it off with feedback from you on how we can make this really the most appropriate kind of low interest, short-term kind of gap funding that we can for businesses that want to make some of these capital improvement projects.
Scott, just real quick, can you change your view to present mode?
Yes. Is that better?
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So Energize Colorado, our mission is to advance the resiliency and equity of the small business ecosystem across the state of Colorado. We know resiliency is kind of a buzzword. And so what we've actually gone ahead and done with a couple of fantastic stakeholders across the state, including the CU Boulder College of Business, is we've actually developed a measure for what resiliency means. We call it our Small Business Resiliency Index. And it focuses on the social capital of a business. So being that traditionally we work with businesses under 10 and 25 employees, the mindset and motivations of the owner operator, the entrepreneur behind the business, really is most of the ballgame. So we focus on that hope, trust, and belonging. Do they have the sense of community? Are they optimistic around what the future holds? And then we focus secondarily on really the business health, financial operations, technology adoption. But you can't do the second part without first addressing the first part. You cannot train a business owner on how to do better financials or adopt new technologies if they don't feel hopeful for what the future has for them. And that's really been one of the guiding principles of the work we do. So a little bit about us is over the last 3 years, $50 million in capital delivered across the state, over 4,000 businesses funded. And I will shout out that in this last year, when we did our Energize community program, one of the 4 communities we funded was childcare businesses. And so over 40% of the loans we made went to childcare businesses, and over 30 of them, in a pool of about 90, participated in our 10-week accelerator program. And I'll just share with you guys anecdotally, working with the childcare cohort was by far the most engaging out of any of the 4. Attendance rates were higher, interest rates were higher, resiliency index scores were higher than almost everyone else. Really just such a great group for us to work with, and it matches our mission so well that when Kristen and a few others had reached out to us and were looking for support on how we can do some of this bridge and gap financing for this E&E grant, we were so optimistic about how we could partner with you all. And that's why I just want to finish today, especially on that feedback piece here, is how can we make this truly gap filling for all of you and the childcare providers that you serve? So this is a taste of the program that we ran last year. We started off with funding readiness workshops. What capital are you looking for? Which program is the right fit for you? If it's not us, then who? And then really, how do you go about accessing it? And then we finish on that 10-week accelerator program. And so likely for this E&E grant kind of loan, the accelerator piece is not going to be as of much interest to the businesses that are using it, since this is so specific on some of those capital improvement projects. But we do maintain a ton of support outside of it from business advisors and digital readiness, and just connections to over 75 different partners across the state that provide training, resources, and different forms of education to support the businesses that engage with us. So a little bit about the loans that we are going to offer up to these E&E grant recipients: $20,000 to $75,000 loan term. And this is where we're kind of the most flexible. We're thinking about 24 months kind of as the high end, try and keep that overall interest payment as low as possible. Interest rate 5.5%. Usually you'll see nonprofit lenders work anywhere between 8 and 15%. So we are trying to come in below that to serve these folks. And then just looking at those average monthly payments between $880 to about $3,000, depending on the size of the loan that they take on, and then obviously the term that they take on with that. So this is where I ask for feedback from you. Is the $75,000 high enough? Should we consider going higher than that for some of the projects these providers are looking at taking on? Is the term the proper length? Again, just the longer the term, the more interest kind of bulks up. So for this to be as flexible as possible, maybe we want to consider loans that are under 12 months even, or somewhere in that kind of middle round of like 18 or 16. And then really, what other support can we provide that is attached with the loan dollars that we've got? So I will kind of pause there. If you do have any questions, I'll make sure you guys have both Ryan and I's contact information, but really just want to open it up for you and ask if this does feel like the right fit, and really how can we help get this out there for the providers that need it most?
Thanks for this. I guess my question would be, as I think about the E&E process, where we would be reimbursing a provider who maybe has a loan, would that change that process where we would actually be cutting a check to you as a lender?
I don't
No.
think
The
so.
money goes
We
the
have
right
the
way?
reimbursement. Yeah, we would still have the reimbursement come to the business, and then it's on them to pay us back how
Yeah.
they see fit.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. They would, so Stacy, think of it this way. You're still going to be reimbursing the project, so you'll need the invoices. So you're reimbursing whatever invoices and costs have come at that point. You're not reimbursing the loan. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that if the provider said, I'm just going to keep this then instead of paying it towards my loan, that there wouldn't be a problem.
It would be for the provider, but not you.
And then I'm all good. All right.
Thank you, Stacy. Michelle, I see you've got your question raised, or your hand raised.
I do. So in this, because I know I have providers that will potentially want to do this, do they need to take into account the interest on that as well and write that into the grant? And I'll probably, and I'm just going to say it right now, ask this at least 5 more times because it'll stick for the moment, but I'm working numbers today. So I'm going to walk through a door and forget it.
No worries. I know that feeling well. I might throw this one over to someone at CDEC.
Yeah, so Michelle, no, because we're not reimbursing the provider because they took out a loan. We're reimbursing the costs that they used the loan money to pay for, right? So if they took out a loan so they could put a deposit down with a contractor, when you receive that invoice from them from the contractor, following your council's fiscal policy of at what point you reimburse eligible expenses, you would be reimbursing them for that invoice, not because you're not reimbursing them because they took out a loan.
Yeah.
This is just allowing them to put down to fund things up front so that if, like, let's say your council policy is that the project needs to be at least 50% done before we'll start reimbursing costs to that, and they have the capital to do that. Does that make sense?
It does.
And something I would add on is we don't have any sort of prepayment penalties. So if the business gets fully reimbursed back by the state for their project and they're ready to pay off their loan in its entirety or in a majority of it, they're more than welcome to do that. That 5.5% really covers some of our admin expenses, not all of them, but we're philanthropically supported to cover some of those additional expenses as well. So we're trying to keep it as low as we can, but we do have some costs that we need to cover with that.
Right. Well, and most of our vendors that are out here don't require a down payment, but then we're not looking at major, like, we're building a building type of a thing
Sure.
and stuff. So that's why I'm asking that.
Yeah. And Michelle, you're reminding me before Mandy, I come to you, is that we want our application for this loan really to be as closely aligned with the E&E grant application as possible. So we're not going to ask for any other really supporting documentation outside of what would be provided in their grant application and the notice that they are receiving the grant. The only thing we'll do in addition is just a credit check on the business to understand what their debt service coverage ratio is and just make sure they're not biting off more than they can chew with our program.
Okay. Thank
Mandy.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. You're on mute, Mandy. Mandy, we can't hear you. I don't.
Sorry.
No worries.
Are these to be set up as a line of credit or a lump sum?
This would be a lump sum.
Lump sum. That's what I thought.
Can I get kind of a gut check on the loan amount? Does $75,000 at the top end seem like it would be the right kind of bridge filler for what we're looking for?
That's if you want. We only had one provider, and I'm just going to jump in. Sorry.
Yes.
We had one provider last year. They were a brand new center and had $196,000.
Okay.
So, and when we worked with them, because of everything that we were doing, they weren't building a building, they were moving into it, but did have to do stuff because it was a childcare center before, then it went to a GED center. Now it's back to the childcare center. So they had to do some remodeling to make it fit into licensing. But like I said, most of our vendors around here are like, okay, I'm like, just be patient with me. We'll get you paid. Don't worry. So.
All right. And Michelle, where are you based out of?
Sterling.
Oh, great. All right. Thank you. Kind of last check, questions, feedback. You guys will have my contact information if you want to reach out and chat offline, but We'll give us 5 more seconds before I hand it back over to Kristen to go over the next speaker. All right. Thank you all so much. If you've got any questions, I'll make sure you have this deck and you've got our contact information. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. And I saw a couple thumbs up come through the screen. So it seems like your targets are right about at the right spot. And just, you know, I think everybody on the call gets this, but this isn't something we're saying is mandatory, recommended, anything. It's if you have a provider who, but for the inability to put some funding up front, could not, you know, would otherwise really benefit from the E&E grant. This is an option to help fill that gap. So think about it in that context. We wanted you to be aware of the opportunity, and Scott's organization, Energize Colorado, generally has just done a lot in the childcare space in the last couple of years. So just a good connection to have too. So thank you all for providing your input. Okay. And then Sonia, I want to pass it over to you to talk a little bit about some of the loan opportunities that OEDIT has available.
Sure, thanks. And Scott and Ryan, I don't know if you're going to stick on, but they have definitely been a strong partner of the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. The way we work is we typically have sums of money, usually from the legislature, and then we'll work with kind of the boots on the ground who are the lenders to deploy that loan capital. And so we have worked with Energize Colorado, and as Scott gave you some numbers before, they helped deploy a lot of the COVID relief money for the state through the Office of Economic Development. And then they have some loan capital that OEDIT and the Colorado Economic Development Commission has deployed through their lens and what they're trying to do as well. So appreciate the work from both of them. And especially, I think for this audience, their focus in on the childcare providers and providing, you know, not only that capital, but a lot of other resources and what we call technical assistance or small business support along with that. So I'm going to share my screen and just walk you through kind of high level, a couple of web pages that we have at OEDIT. What I want to touch on, since I think your main interest is loan programs, I'll just show you the resources for our loan programs. And then want to make sure that people are familiar with some of the tax credits that might also come into play for these kinds of businesses. And make sure you're aware of the resource, the small business development centers. So I will go ahead. Okay, so the first place that I'm landing, oedit.colorado.gov is the office's website. But where I've taken us is we have a programs and funding tab. And I always encourage people to go here because then you can filter through the whole variety of programs. And I think we might have 140 different programs that you can find. So if you're talking with a childcare provider business and trying to get them connected to resources, I would encourage them to look at, okay, I'm a business, so I want to see what's available for me. We have then types of support. So some of it's technical assistance, meaning, you know, can we help you operate your business better, help you with financial statements? Within programs, the office supports creative industries and outdoor rec. So a lot of things like that will be under program support. They could look into grants if they're available. They can look into tax credits. They can look into loans. And then there are some kind of larger programmatic type options to look at, and then some particular industry focuses. So by using this kind of program and funding web page and then clicking through the filters, you can often whittle down to find the kinds of resources that are really going to be helpful. So what I did is I clicked on the businesses and loans to look at what kinds of loan resources is OEDA offering right now. We have a fund called the Colorado Startup Loan Fund. And what this does is similar to how we're supporting Energize Colorado. We've partnered with a number of small business lenders, and these are nonprofit lenders. It could be CDFIs, community development financing institutions. So these are helping businesses that can't get a bank loan. We'd always encourage people to go get a bank loan first, because as Scott mentioned, the rates that are going to be charged on a loan through one of our nonprofit lenders are higher. And a reason for that is they don't make money on deposits. They have a lot of obligations to support low to moderate income individuals. And so the risk is higher and the rates are higher. But if they were to click through to this page, they could learn more about what are the kinds of loan sizes that are being offered, what can they do with those loans. Some lenders will provide loans for constructions and things like that. Some others don't. They're more focused on operations. So through this link, you could find more about that particular loan fund and explore if it's the right resource depending on the business and their needs. Another loan fund that we have is the Climber Loan Program. This is a larger pool of money, and what it's doing is incentivizing often banks to, in addition to CDFIs, a larger pool of lenders to take on a little more risk with some businesses. And so what the state does is put some money behind that so that the bank will make a loan at a reasonable rate. We have a Colorado Credit Reserve and the Colorado Cash Collateral Support Program. And both of these also are a kind of credit enhancement, so that if a small business went to a bank and the bank said, you know what, I can't make you a loan based on our credit standards, these can come in to help them make that loan. And really kind of the first step is for that business to understand if they're loan ready, approach the bank. And then if there's some kind of a shortfall, we would work through the bank to bring these to that loan. We have a revolving loan fund, which kind of works statewide. And then we have the Community Development Block Grant Loan Program. These are similar. And what they do is they work with, again, it could be nonprofit lenders, but with this one, it's a lot of our economic development partners who have set up loan funds. And so they're really focused on supporting businesses that are needed in that community and, again, can't access a bank loan. So I wanted to, just at a high level, introduce you to these. My feeling is that what Scott and Ryan are doing at Energize is probably going to be the best bet for a loan for these childcare providers, especially since they're trying to design their loan product to match with the grant. Just briefly, I want to bring up the enterprise zone tax credits to make sure that when you're talking with small businesses, you make them aware of this program. Now, it's not putting cash directly into their pockets to spend on their operations, but what it does is it'll save them money on their state taxes. So if they are making investments to open a childcare facility or to keep things up to date, if it's equipment that qualifies as business personal property, they can earn a state income tax credit for making that investment. If they're adding net new employees, they can earn state income tax credits for doing so. So what I would tell you to share here is to look at the enterprise zone map. This always comes up a little too small, but we have an interactive map. They can put in their address and determine if they are in an enterprise zone. If they are, the first thing they want to do is apply. You need to pre-certify, meaning you get in the system, you say, I'm aware of the credit, and a local enterprise zone administrator will confirm that their business is in the enterprise zone. And then as they do activities to earn those credits, like making those investments in business personal property, they would keep records of that throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, when they're filing taxes, they certify for tax credits, and then that is a credit against their tax liability. So we can, of course, dig more into this program if people are interested in it, but I just want to make sure you're aware of it. And then finally, the Small Business Development Centers, coloradosbdc.org. And we encourage all small businesses to get connected to the SBDCs. There's some information about what resources are offered. So they have training programs, consultants that can help businesses one-on-one. And your first step is to find your local center and to get registered. I'll drop these links in the chat as well. But just wanted to share those resources, and then I'm open to any questions.
Sonia, there's a question in the chat from Sherry Valdez about grant opportunities for childcare through OEdit. And Sherry's just making the point that many of our childcare providers have, difficulty maintaining sound business structure. And so certainly grants are more appealing over loan products. And Sherry, just to that point, you're 100% correct. And we are definitely not encouraging childcare businesses to unnecessarily take on loans. We just wanted you all to be aware today of what the options were that exist out there in the event that they needed to. So I'll say, Sonia, I know that OEdit has in that sort of pick list of opportunities a page on grants, and just breezing through it, I'm not seeing anything specific to childcare programming, but wanted to see, and I'll drop the link to that specific part of the webpage. I wanted to see if anything jumped to mind for you out of the grant products that you all have available.
Yeah, nothing that I know of at the time. And I know small businesses, of course, they love to have grants. Who doesn't want free money? But it is rare that there are grant opportunities. Certainly during COVID, there were some opportunities for grants, but none that I know of right now. And then just another point to think about is when a business receives a grant, that's a gift and it's considered taxable income. Whereas a loan, you're able to expense that. So sometimes on the bottom line, a grant seems nice, but bottom line, especially a low interest loan, can work really nicely for a small business.
All right, thank you for that, Sonia. Any other questions before Sonia leaves? And I will say, just looking at these while you're thinking of your questions, looking at the grants, it seems like childcare businesses might fit into some of these. They're just not explicitly targeted to that sector.
Yeah, I know, like right now we have grants for economic development organizations open. So, childcare doesn't fit that, but there might be something there. And if there is, on that program page, you'll find the program contact and we can explore it a little more. And I'll go ahead and pop those links in. I'll take a quick look too and hang out in the background and let you know if I do see that there's something that would be really applicable.
All right, I'm not seeing any other questions. Thank you, Sonia, so much. And thank you, Scott, again. Charlie, we'll pass it back to you.
Thank you all so much for being here and for presenting to our councils. And I'm sure many of us here will be taking you up on some of the services that you're offering. All right, speaking of E&E, it's that time, that wonderful time where Emily is going to give us some E&E updates.
Thanks, Charlie. So good to see you all. And I wanted to give you just a couple updates. As you know, we opened the E&E application on Monday. And I'm really happy to say that we're getting applications in from communities across the state. So it's pretty exciting to see just the diversity of locations of folks applying. So one of the things I wanted to talk with you about is if a program is ineligible for E&E, the practices that we're implementing this year is that either the council or the licensing specialist would circle back with the program before the application is marked ineligible. And this is because when the status of the application is marked as ineligible, there's just a generic email that's sent out. And I'm not even sure if it says E&E in it. I can check that, but it doesn't provide any information as to why. And so we thought about if the program's ineligible for a licensing reason, then it's appropriate for the licensing specialist to have that conversation with the provider. If it's ineligible because they misunderstood, like we had one earlier this week that misunderstood that what we meant when we meant a new program, which is like brand spanking new, not new slots. So we had the council reach back to her and just say, hey, this is what new means. And she's like, cool. So then we can mark it ineligible, but it also gives the opportunity to have a touch point with that provider and check in and see how they're doing. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. So you can get some emails from me as we start to be able to make some of these determinations. The other question I'm getting a lot is what is the definition of a full-time slot? Because the E&E program is specifically intended to support opening full-time slots. And so a full-time slot is considered at least 5 hours a day, 4 or more days a week. So if you have a preschool program that's having a half day in the morning and a half day in the afternoon, and it's not the same kids, that's not a full-time slot. So I think that's one of the questions I get, and this is also outlined in the FAQ. Yeah, so Chelsea, brand new programs are eligible. They have to be, yeah, if they're new, that's the emerging programs, whereas expanding is existing programs that are adding slots or potentially adding slots. So yeah, no, we love that. It was last year. What the example I gave is a program that received E&E funding last year for expanding her slots and then applied this year because she didn't understand that you don't, you got your funding already, you don't get another chance at it. So the other piece I wanted to let you know is that I'm going to be setting up some more office hours. And so watch your emails. I'm trying to figure out if I can hold it at a similar time each week so you guys can know when it is and plan better. I also am struggling between that and also wanting to add a variety of times because of standing meetings or things like that to meet the need of the council. So I'm going to send out some more availability on that. So if you have questions or want to hang out or you have want to talk stuff through, I'm happy to do that. And Bonnie often comes with me, and it's really been a great experience so far. And I've loved seeing those of you that have come. And then the other pieces, and we talked about this with Scott and Sonia, but if a program has any sort of financing, a loan, whether it's through their bank, whether it's through one of these opportunities that were detailed on this webinar, the eligible expense is not the loan. It is the project that is being paid for with the loan funding. So please support providers in building budgets that talk about the expenses of the project that don't include loan repayments. We haven't seen that yet, but just the questions that we've had around it and then the questions that came up today. I think just treating providers that receive outside funding from banks or any other program, that's really their prerogative. And what you're looking for is the documentation and the support you need to provide reimbursement for the projects that are being done to either help them open or expand their slots. The other thing is that you want to be really clear with on your providers is at what point they would be eligible for reimbursement of expenses. So I think thinking about that piece and making sure that if your council has a policy that they're not just going to reimburse as expenses come along, that it's clear around those expectations so that the provider understands what their cash flow may look like. So that's just the other thing to point out. Those are the two things that have kind of come up in the past couple weeks. So I want to open the floor for questions, and I just want to make sure if you have a question about a specific program or application, shoot me an email and let's figure out a time to connect on that. But this is more about like eligibility or requirements or things like that. What do y'all have? Or we can hang out later. So you can come to my office hours and ask. So yeah, yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Sorry. Do you have your office hours that you can post in your new office hours you can post in the chat, and I'll include them on the agenda as well?
I'll add them. I haven't put them on my calendar yet, but I will put
Okay.
a bunch of them on, and then we'll post them. That's a great idea.
Cool.
So yeah, and then if I ever have to cancel and watch your email because you're not included on the Evite, because I know the sync between Google and Microsoft isn't always great, and you can get ghost meetings on your calendar. And so I'll post the office hours and the login information, and then you can calendar the ones that work for you. And then I can also put it in an email and have it sent out. Thanks, everybody.
Let that sink in. All these sync issues. All right, wonderful. Nobody has any questions for Emily regarding E&E? I'm sure you do, but
I always tease Charlie when he asks for agenda items. I'm like, why are you asking everyone? It's just going to be E&E, So yeah, so I love seeing y'all. Connect with me when you have those weird situations or just clarifying questions. I'm happy to help.
awesome. Thank you so much. Elaine, I think, yeah, I see you on there. Sorry, we're not a problem, I guess. We're running a little bit early ahead of schedule, so we'll just keep that ball rolling. And Elaine is going to talk about some wonderful experience enhancements within PDIS. I got kind of a sneak preview of these. I'm very excited. I think you all will be as well.
Yes, I also am really excited. So I hope this this is as useful as we want it to be. So thanks for setting that up, Charlie. Hi, everyone. I am, okay, just want to make sure I was off mute. My name's Elaine. I'm the PDIS manager, and I am excited to show you some new functionality that we have in the PDIS. So this new functionality relates to how the PDIS receives and stores verified work experience hours. So the current process is that a director writes a letter, prints it, signs it, gives it to the staff member, who then uploads it as part of an application, or saves it with their files at a center, and then someone from the CDEC side reviews it and either accepts it or denies it. And then if it is accepted, it counts like for that specific application or for that specific review, but the experience isn't stored with the individual's profile. So if they are applying again, they need to resubmit that experience letter. Our new process includes the same process as well. So directors are still able to write letters, staff are still able to submit letters for approval, but there is an additional process as well here. So as of, I want to say Monday, directors and workforce managers are now able to enter staff experience hours directly into the PDIS for their employees. And then in addition to that, rather than being saved just within an individual application, the experience hours are saved to the user's profile so that they'll be available for future applications, and we won't have to need to keep uploading the same experience letters. And one of the most frustrating aspects of the application reviews that we do is when we have to reject experience letters because they don't meet different requirements or rule. And so our hope with this enhancement is that this process is going to make things easier for directors and staff members, and that it's going to decrease the amount of experience that gets rejected, and so that people get credit for the experience that we know they have. So the first thing to note here is that to add verified experience hours, someone has to have director or workforce manager role and permissions in the PDIS. And so there's the job role, but then in addition to that, there's permissions that need to be granted in order to have this ability in the PDIS. So if someone has the director or workforce manager permissions, when they'll see the My Employees option on their PDIS menu. If they don't see My Employees in their menu, that means that they need to get these permissions. So to get director permissions, whoever is wanting them will reach out to the PDIS help desk. The help desk confirms that this person is the director of the center or the program, and then we'll grant them this access. To get workforce manager permissions, the PDIS administrator for a program will be able to grant those. And we have a how-to guide about those permissions specifically that will be sent out with everyone along with these slides. But that is kind of the first step. And then once director or workforce manager has the right permissions, they'll be able to add the verified experience for their staff. So they will go to the My Employees section, select their program, and then they'll see a button to add employee experience. So I am going to demonstrate this within the PDIS, and then we also have some step-by-step slides at the end that will be shared out with all of you. But before we get into the demonstration, I just want to take a minute to talk about some of the technical restrictions that are in place. So most of these, pretty much all of the restrictions and validations that are in place are to make sure that we have all the information we need to meet different licensing and credential rules. And so I'll show some examples of different validation or error messages you'll get if the information isn't entered completely or correctly. But this way we know that all the information we get is complete and that we can really trust the data that are coming in, and therefore sorry, my mind just went blank. Well, we can trust the data that comes in and give it to the people that it is aligned with. And then the other main restriction in place is that experience cannot be added that overlaps with existing experience for the same employer. So for example, if someone has been working at a program from 2018 to now, and they send in an experience letter that gives their experience hours from when they started in 2018 to June 2022, if a director were to go in and wanted to add experience for that employee, they would only be able to add experience from July 2022 to present, rather than, and they wouldn't be able to do it from 2018 on because there's that overlapping. We don't want to count the same experience multiple times. And again, I'll show an example of this in the demo. Okay, so yes, it looks like this is showing. So this is, it's called our test environment. So this is a fake user and fake data, but it looks exactly the same as it does on the on your PDIS. So the first thing is that this is true for all users. If you go to my profile now, you'll see a new little table. Sorry, if you go to my profile and then employment, you'll see this new section called employment summary that has the sum of the total verified experience hours broken out by age group. So everyone will see this on their profile now, though it will probably be 0 hours for everyone since this is so new. But then to add in experience, you go to the My Employees section, you select your program, and then you'll see this new column here for add employee experience. And feel free to take notes and ask questions, but there are step-by-step slides that will be shared out with you all walking through this process. But to add experience, you click this and a new pop-up window will show. There's a few different pieces here. So at the top, there are 2 different dates presented. The first is the employment dates, so when the person started working at the program. And if someone has an end date, you'll also see that here. If there is no end date, it'll just be blank. So those are the employment dates. And then the next date section is dates to add verified experience. So the first time you go in, you might add experience for when the employee started to current, but we're hoping that this can be a process where perhaps like once a year, a director goes in and adds the experience for their employees for the past year. So the dates, the second set of dates are specific to the experience that you are currently adding to someone's profile. And then to give an example, so it's pretty straightforward. You select the day, the month, the day of the year. We'll just do it like this. And so this is an example of the overlapping experience. So as I showed you for just a second earlier, this user already has experience saved to their profile. And so the dates that I put in overlap with that user's previously verified experience. So I'm getting this error message. In preparing these slides for everyone, I realized that there is nowhere for you to see what dates someone already has verified experience for. So you would just have to guess when it is. And so we are working on that. That's an issue. So we'll get the developers to add in the dates of already verified experience so that you will know what your restrictions are. But since I'm the one who put this in yesterday, I know when it is. So that's the dates. The next one is how many children does the staff work with? So this is part of, for some credentials, you need to work with 4 or more children. So if you put in a number lower than 4, you'll get this error message. But let's say this person works with 8 children. And then there are 2 methods for adding experience. Have the PDIS calculate them or enter them yourself. Entering the total hours, if you click this, you'll get 3 different pop-up windows. And so this is a similar approach to if someone were writing an experience letter. It would just be the total number of hours that an individual worked with children 8 or younger in this time frame, or the total number of hours worked with 9 or older, total number of hours worked with infants and toddlers. And so this is just a sum of their experience in this time frame. The other option, and if you are wondering, there is this little pop-up that gives some information of what is considered infants and toddlers versus 8 and younger, but not infants and toddlers. The other option is to have the PDIS calculate the experience hours. And so the difference here is that you enter the hours the staff member worked per week with each age group. And then since it knows the start date and the end date, the PDIS will calculate it itself. So let's say this person works 25 hours a week with children under 8 and 10 hours a week in an infant and toddler classroom. So once you have that in, you click add verified hours and it will give you this, what it's calculated out. So for the weeks that I put in, the start date and end date and the weekly hours, it calculated that this person had 550 hours of experience with this age group, 220 hours of experience with this age group, and no experience with children 9 or older. If, let's say, I had accidentally, if I was trying to say they did 6 hours, but I accidentally put in 60, and I go here, this gives you a chance to review it and say, oh, that doesn't look right. You can go back, you can change it and update it to what is correct. And then once you review this, you feel good about this, you click accept, and then you get this attestation. Because we don't have a CDEC reviewer specifically putting eyes on this like we do with all the experience letters, we wanted to put an extra step in place to make sure that people really were being thoughtful about this, making sure the hours they were putting in are correct. And so this is the attestation. You click agree if you're sure that it's right. If not, you can click to go back. And this is a little slow, but then the experience has been added. So if you were to go back, if this user were to go look at their profile, go to the employment, they would see that their verified experience hours have now gone up. That is a demo. I do see a lot coming in through chat. So I'm wondering if we want to pause for questions now, or I have a few more slides and then we can do questions.
Let's pause now if that's okay, because I think
Yeah.
some of them are related. And I just want to address the first round of questions. So I know there's still been some issues with directors or home providers having access to the My Employees tab. So we at the Colorado Shines Help Desk are able to support with that, as is the PDIS Help Desk. As you know, the PDIS Help Desk has been unbearing themselves from quite a few help desk requests during the ECPC storm of 2022. And so feel free to email the Colorado Shines Help Desk to gain access. The only thing that we need is for the director to have associated themselves with their program in PDIS before we're able to assign director status. So as long as they've associated themselves with their program in their employment in PDIS, then our help desk or the PDIS help desk can make sure they have that access. So I hope that helps with some of those issues. And then, so first question here from Sherry, is there a staff contact document for CDEC or a place online to access this information in one place? Who does what and their contact info included? Sherry, do you mind elaborating on that question?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I don't come to the meetings all the time. I have staff that are covering a lot of that, but where can I go find Emily's email and Elaine's email, and knowing that Elaine does PDIS and Emily does E&E, et cetera, et cetera. And I know it's ever changing for you all as people are being added, but I just would suggest maybe having that conversation about giving us access somehow, or is there something just within this team that does our TA that you guys have put together?
Yes,
I don't even know where to go.
believe Charlie sends out the agenda, is attached to the meeting invite for today's call and every month. And in that meeting agenda, every presenter's email address is provided.
Yes.
Thank you. I will look there. I appreciate that.
And, you know, as a default, you can always email the Colorado Shines Help Desk, and anything that we can't take on personally, we can navigate to deliver that message to the person in the department who it should go to. So I would default on that if you're not sure who to send a message to, and I'll put our email in the chat.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, no worries. Next, a mystery person asked, is there any other proof that a director needs, like a time card or something, to verify employment?
So not to submit this online, but we're trying to make this process both a lot easier than the current process and still match the current process. So I would say whatever process a director currently uses to write those experience letters is the same process they should use here as far as verifying what the experience hours are. If there are follow-up questions for that piece, please raise them right now. What if someone is working at 2 different centers at the same time? That is a great question. So these experience records is what we're calling them, are matched specifically to the employer. So if an employee, or sorry, if a PDIS user has multiple employments, they can get experience added separately for each employment. And so those can overlap. But within one employer, you can't have overlapping experience. If you're working at the same time across multiple employers, you can have overlapping experience across each employer. And please let me know if I didn't explain that well. Yeah, so that is a really good question about indirect work with children, and something that we talked about a decent amount when putting this together. There's definitely a desire to figure out how we can incorporate indirect work, both in just as far as tracking in the PDIS, but also for any credential or qualification, because we know there's so much support around the direct care providers. At this point in time, this experience added to the PDIS is just for direct care, but it's on our mind, and we do want to expand how we support the broader field. So I hope that answers your question, Nicole. Okay, I think, oh, my computer. I think I answered the questions. Are there more that anyone else is seeing?
I think that's it. So Amanda typed in here about like an emergency situation where there's a center going through their rating. Just know if it's ever like an urgent, you need this right away, and you can reach out to your QRIS coordinator, and we can, for those emergent, I'm not asking for every help desk ticket to be sent to us. But if there is like a time crunch and something is needed right away, feel free to reach out to your QRIS coordinator, and we can do our best to support to making sure that those issues aren't holding up like a rating or things like that are really time sensitive. So we recommend doing this stuff well in advance of the rating, but if you are in a pinch like that, you can always email us directly, and we're happy to help with that. And it looks like one more question popped in here. Sorry.
Okay, has worked only in will not be credited with experience. So I know coaching credentials. So different credentials do have different types of experience that they accept, and so we're trying to make this work with all of them. I'm not completely sure what you mean by won't be credited with experience. So this process is meant to supplement the existing process for direct care experience. So I might be missing a piece of that question. Karen, if you want to jump off and explain it more.
Perhaps I'm misunderstanding. What I'm understanding is that this new process will change the requirement for the direct letters. Is that it? Did I misunderstand that piece?
So the direct letters will remain the exact same, and the letters. So those, and you can still, the process that has been in place is still in place and can still be used by anyone. It's just if someone prefers not to do that, there is another option now of just doing it all through the PDIS. But those physical letters that have been accepted for forever now are still accepted.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let me jump to where we were. Okay, so there are some other pieces of this that we are currently developing and will be released in March. So any experience that is added directly into the PDIS, a user will be able to generate an experience letter within the PDIS. And so it will meet all of the same licensing requirements. So if anyone still needs that physical director experience letter, you'll be able to get it even from experience that is added in this other route. And it will compile all experience for a specific employer. So if someone submits an experience letter that gets added to their profile, and then the next year the director goes in and adds it in this other route, the user can generate the experience letter and it will collapse the experience, the entire experience across that employer. The other thing is that you'll be able to generate an experience summary. So the experience letter is specific to one employer and is formatted like a letter. The experience summary is going to be across all employers. So if people are working across multiple centers, then they'll be able to generate this summary that has the employer, the license number, and then the hours worked with each child at each employer. And then lastly, this verified experience is going to automatically populate in applications. So for someone who's submitting an ECPC application or a director qualification application, any application that the PDIS supports, starting in March, all verified experience that is saved to a user's profile will automatically count towards that application. However, people will still be able to upload experience letters in addition to what is already saved in their profile. So resources, these slides, as I mentioned, there are step-by-step instructions for the demo that I walked through at the end. And so these will be shared out with you. And then, I meant to put that as the real words. That stands for how-to guide. We are putting together a how-to guide that is going to be posted on the PDIS, along with the other how-to guides that we have. And so we will probably have this in about 2 weeks, and then we'll share it out with everyone. And then since this is a pretty big change, we're going to be doing some webinars to walk through this and answer questions for folks. So for directors and workforce managers, I think the plan is to have 2 webinars in February for talking through how to add verified experience for employees. And then once we have that additional functionality in March about generating the letters and the summaries and including it in an application, we'll have additional webinars for all PDIS users in March once those options are available. And then just another sneak peek of some other things we're working on. We're going to do a revamp of the user experience and user interface in the PDIS. We know it can be difficult to find exactly what you're looking for, or just to navigate and figure out all the things you need to figure out in the PDIS. So we'll have a survey that will be available for anyone to respond to. We'll do some focus groups as well to dig in a little deeper into some of the trouble areas and really figure out how we can best update how the PDIS works so that it's easier to use for everyone. And then our other big thing is PD, is what we have named him, PD, the PDIS Help Desk chatbot. We are working on developing this. And so our goal with this chatbot is to help people get quicker responses for some of those fairly straightforward questions. So trouble accessing your account or trouble with logging in. We're hoping that the chatbot will just be available right away and give you that support right away. Or trying to find specific resources on the PDIS. We're hoping that this will help people get help faster, get support faster, and just make using the PDIS a little bit easier. That is all I have to share with you today. And so I did see a few other things in the chat. Correct, Lisa. The way this is currently set up it's for direct care providers, not for administrative staff. What other questions do folks have?
I was going to ask if the chatbot had a name yet, so I'm glad he does. We'll try to get PD, PD on here at the next State TA Day to introduce himself. And
we're currently trying to figure out what he's going to look like.
That's fun. Give him blue hair or something.
Exactly.
Cool. Wow, so much happening. And again, this is right at the end of a really challenging time with getting those ECPC credentials approved. And there have been so many wonderful positive changes within PDIS over the past year or so. So yeah, we're really grateful for you and your team, Elaine. Can PD be a parrot with a monocle and a pipe? That'd be cute. Cool. So if you have any questions, yeah, we have Elaine, if you don't mind dropping your email in the chat, but we also have it on the agenda. And I think we have Kristen coming back for an encore. Sorry about that. I should have scheduled you right after that other.
No, I always learn good things on this meeting. So I'm happy to know about PD. So yes, we are back to talk to you about some state systems building initiatives unit updates. Okay. So we want to start off just with a quick update on our Small Business Development Center Childcare Business Training. For those of you who participate in this project, you know that we met with each of the councils one-on-one to debrief what went well last year in terms of training. This is last year, and because it started on PDG, we ran originally on a calendar year. And so 2022 represented our 2.25 year mark of this training initiative. And so we met with each of the councils that was involved and talked to them about what went well, what might need to change as we look ahead to 2023. We also had similar debriefing opportunities with the involved small business development centers and with our licensing support staff who help with the trainings. And so we wanted to share back some themes that came from, the variety of feedback opportunities that we engaged in with the folks directly involved in this training. And these were shared with the small business development centers. They're actually going to be part of an end of year report that is just waiting to be finalized. We need some metrics yet from OEDIT, but we'll share that with you all as well if you want to dig in a little deeper to see the nature of the themes and how they differ between the groups, as well as to understand some of that year-long metric information that we have around total participants and hours of consultation and things like that. But the first one here is really just that we heard loud and clear how valuable the partnership has been between the early childhood councils and small business development centers in the communities where this project is running. Just the opportunity to get to know the services each other is providing and the types of programs that they're working with. And so wanted to just elevate that, and hopefully that will continue to be an area of strength for us in 2023. There was an observation from multiple partners in this project that, in this, in our 2.25 year birthday, where we started with some foundational business training, folks are now seeing a need for more in-depth single topic advanced trainings. We're hearing that from providers, from early childhood councils, from SBDCs. And so examples like the East Colorado Small Business Development Center that Michelle's supporting on, really digging into the financials of childcare providers. That's an example of one of these more advanced levels of training. And we expect to see more of that in 2023 too. Something else that emerged was just the importance of supporting our Spanish-speaking providers with access both in and out of class to supportive resources, recognizing that, when they take a Spanish language small business development center training, we want to also be able to connect them with, someone who can support them in their local council, as well as a Spanish-speaking licensing specialist. And we just need to kind of tighten up those connections so that they're fully supported. There was something that I think will ring true for all of you who participate in the project, which is just a need to continue to streamline those marketing efforts around the trainings and make sure small business development centers are letting their early childhood council partners know far enough in advance about when training is planned, as well as our department, so we can help with marketing. We continue to see an issue with just lack of technology and the difficulty that some of our providers have when they have to try to access the training through smartphones, and it doesn't allow for as much engagement. We did hear, and we were happy to hear, especially from those councils that have been in this project for several years now, that our small business development centers have really grown in their understanding of the childcare industry and how to support their local providers. And we've certainly seen that too. And then finally, just everyone elevated the benefits of the one-on-one business consultations that are available at no cost to training participants, as well as to those who don't participate in the training. And so just wanted to remind everybody that that is a resource that is available statewide. So I'm going to pass it over to Marika to talk about some of the upcoming training and consultation opportunities.
Thank you, Kristen. So first, we wanted to celebrate and congratulate 2 of our SBDCs who sold out, or the registration filled out for their January and February classes. One of them was East Colorado SBDC's financials class that Kristen mentioned. And this was actually the second time this type of in-depth single topic class sold out for them. So that's wonderful to hear. And Larimer SBDC's first 2023 business training program sold out as well. So that's always nice to hear. Right now, Aurora South Metro SBDC is offering a single topic workshop for home-based childcare providers on childcare co-op opportunities. This is another example of a more advanced topic training that the SBDC is offering. This one started last week. It is offered only in Spanish, and it's offered in a hybrid model. We've had more SBDCs kind of move toward some in-person offerings. So this is offered both virtually and, in person. And we also want to mention quickly, Southern Colorado SBDC has a spring training series coming up in March. It's nice to say spring in the middle of winter. We can move on to the next slide. Yes, the training is at no cost to providers, but it did sell out. The registration filled out. Thanks, Kristen. So we've updated our Early Childhood Council billing guidance documents for 2023. And the 2023 guidance document includes updated information with lots of links to updated documents for 2023. Some of the documents are prior approval form, updated invoice form, SBDC's consultation registration information, as well as the ECC and SBDC contact form. I think Kristen's going to drop off links for those forms. And we wanted to go through just a little bit in more detail about the type of support that we have funding available for. So the first type of support that the councils can provide for the SBDCs is consultation on creating the childcare business training curriculum, or maybe consultation on refreshing the curriculum. And another one is for ECC staff to attend and provide technical assistance during the actual live class, whether it's in person or virtual. And we wanted to go a little bit more detail here. So we recommend that ECC staff attends each class in the training series. In the past, we've had a little bit more lenience in funding, but now that we've switched to stimulus funding on this project, we might have a little bit less funding toward that coaching piece. We're not sure about this yet. We kind of have to see how everything goes. So if you have some special requests on staff on ECC staffing for the in-person attendance, please reach out to Kristen and me, and we can figure that out. And then the reason why we want ECC staff in attendance during the training is that in case questions pop up on early childhood education related topics during the training, we want the ECC staff to be able to answer those questions and also to build those relationships with providers during the training. And an example of the miscellaneous coaching of the SBDCs could include a phone call if the SBDC is providing one-on-one consultation to a provider and a question pops up during the consultation and the SBDC might not be able to answer that question, so they can give the ECC staff a call and talk about that question. And finally, at the bottom of the slide, we have the ECC SBDC contact form. If you can just take a quick peek at that form to make sure that your council's contact information is correct in case the SBDC staff needs to get hold of anyone at the council. I'll pass it back to you, Kristen.
All right, thank you. I'm going to pass it over to Megan to give an update on our Inclusion Universal Design project.
Hello, it's nice to see you all today. I know that councils have been hearing from me via email regarding this topic, but I just wanted to take a moment to celebrate one of the projects that we support and let every other council know that the Preschool Development Grant Inclusion Universal Design Project has been going on for a couple of years, and we just selected our cohort members for the 4th cohort of this program. So this is a 6-month cohort model that runs for licensed providers that had the opportunity to apply. We selected 46 for this cohort. And this work happens in conjunction with our colleagues at the Center for Inclusive Design and Engineering at CU Denver, and some links that I will share here and in the agenda. So this first link is on the slide here, this cohort 4 breakdown. So this is just a little bit more information about the programs that were selected. So Kristen is showing it on the screen, and that map that was on the slide is also on this document. So it's pretty exciting to continue this work in helping providers create more inclusive environments for children with delays and disabilities. And on the map, you'll see there's 4 pink stars, and that indicates new counties that we haven't interacted with in this program that were added to this recent cohort. So a lot of the darker stars that you'll see are also represented in this present cohort, but the pink ones indicate new cohorts or new counties, I'm sorry. And so that's really exciting because the 4 new ones are pretty rural in our state. And so it's really awesome that we keep spreading the word of this program and getting these resources and content to folks all across the state. And so there's also going to be another link that I can add to the agenda that's also in the slide that just highlights the trainings and incentives. So providers that participate in this program get to access different incentives along the way, so they can actually interact with adapted materials in their environment, amongst other things. And that also gives a list of the type of training that they're receiving. So we'll make sure that you get all of that information, but just wanted everyone to be aware that this is underway and they just had their first training in January. So.
Thank you, Megan. Okay. We wanted to take a quick moment to share some updates on our work around quality nutrition. We have the pleasure of having Katie Hale on our quality nutrition work group, and she brings just incredible perspective as an early childhood council director. But we realized that we hadn't really provided an update to you all on where we are with this work. So this is a work group that we engage in with our partners at CDPHE and the Child and Adult Care Food Program, Colorado Department of Education and their school nutrition program, various food access advocates, as well as local organizations like Grand Beginnings. And so we all come together every other week to really work on this goal of ensuring that especially our marginalized and underserved children and families have access to quality nutrition in that early care and education environment. And so a lot of our work tends to focus on access to CACFP because that is the sort of key food program available in the context of our early care and learning settings. We also do some work with National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program, of course, for our district-based providers. So one of the key things that this work group did is for the first time really look at participation data around CACFP, NSLP, and School Breakfast Program among our providers that are serving children birth to 5. And so we have a chart here on the left of the participation among licensed family child care home providers since June 2020, which is when we first started tracking, to our most recent update in December 2022. What you'll see is that the lighter bar is representing the percentage participating. The darker bar represents the percentage not participating of that overall population of home providers. And although all licensed family child care homes are eligible for CACFP, we see this this participation rate sort of staying somewhere around 55 to, at the best, it was about 62%. And so we're really not seeing a lot of movement in terms of participation in the program. And so that's one thing that we have recognized now over time with this data. We also look at other populations that are likely to be eligible for the food program. So we know all our nonprofit center providers are eligible for CACFP. And so we look there at the breakdown between the percentage participating only in CACFP, which is the dark part of the circle, the percentage participating both CACFP and the National School Lunch Program, which is the light blue part of the circle, and then only National School Lunch Program or School Breakfast Program is the orange part. What's important here is that this big teal section is not participating in any food program. And so the purpose of showing you this data really is to just say that we have work to do still to figure out how to ensure we make these programs appealing to providers so they can ensure that they're providing quality nutrition to the children they serve, utilizing resources that can also help the provider, minimize their expenses. So one thing we did was to compile research findings, and Megan did a lot of great work to bring together both national research as well as some research we had that was Colorado specific based on some recent PDG surveys of the workforce around why providers may not choose to participate in the CACFP program and what some of the barriers to staying in the program, even if they do participate, might be. And so we compiled those into a list and sort of brainstormed some key takeaways that can guide our future work as a work group. So I'm going to drop that list of takeaways in the chat. I think you might find it interesting if this is a priority in your community to connect providers to CACFP. There might be some good information in here for you. But with that understanding of sort of those key takeaways of why folks may not want to participate or stay in the program, we're thinking about creating a toolkit that can support local organizations like councils to be able to be that trusted messenger about the program with the providers that are eligible with whom they work. And we will be coming back to you. We're in the very earliest stages of this work, but we will be reaching back out to you for feedback about what tools are helpful. What you'll see on the slide here is just our initial thinking within the work group, but like I said, it's early. So more to come, but wanted to give you a quick update on that work because we hadn't talked about it in a while. So our email addresses are all here if you have questions, but I know we're at time, so I'll pass it back to you, Charlie.
Thank you so much, Kristen. I've been, as links have been appearing in the chats, I've been just plopping them right there in the agenda. So everyone will have access to them. Don't feel like you have to make a million tabs right now and bookmark them and everything. They're in the agenda live. So as long as you have the calendar invite, all those links will be in the agenda. And of course, we send out our follow-up email. It'll be sent out probably Monday, as I will not be in tomorrow. All right, Brenda. No, I saw you.
Hello, I'm here. I'm here.
Hello.
Hi, Charlie.
Hi again.
So I'm going to share my screen and kind of give some updates on the tax credit. Let's see, here we go. All right. So we've wrapped up this project and I thought I should close it off with you folks as well. So just a quick update and some high-level information for you. But as I pulled this up, I thought, you know what? I forgot to include some people on this slide deck. So a quick shout out to the approvers of the project, who were Jesse Byrne and Stephanie Hickman, to the core team who helped get this project moving, which was those individuals, and in addition, Jennifer McDonald and Elaine Maskus. There are many other people that contribute to the original conversation, and I'm sorry, but I don't have that list in front of me. Know that I thank you, and I'm grateful for your initial input. And also and it sounds like an acceptance speech for an Oscar, right? But you have to give shout outs to these folks because this was a huge effort. And also to Sarah Harrison, who's actually with Government Performance Systems, and what she did is help me move through this gigantic project with a process, that DMAIC process. And that's new to me. First time I ever ran a project like this. Very grateful for that input. So I'll go ahead and get started. So this is the Early Childhood Educator Tax Credit Update. This is House Bill 221010. If you recall, you've seen this slide many, many times. Eligibility for this tax credit is a three-pronged phase. First, do you have a credential? Second, have you worked in a licensed child care facility? And third, what is your household income? At this point, that data has been turned over to the Colorado Department of Revenue. So any questions you have as to how you may want to get the credit should be directed to them. They're the folks in charge of processing the credit, okay? So here is their email address, and here is their telephone number. And Charlie, you do share this out later, right? So they can access this information later? Okay. All right, cool.
Yes, correct. As long
All
as
right.
I get a link from you.
Cool. I'll send it over. All right. So what we did on this next slide that I'm going to show you is we compared job equivalency and the ECPC credentials awarded by CDEC. So when you see these numbers, know that these were awarded once we absorbed the credential from the Colorado Department of Education, okay? So here's the numbers. This is the big project here. Here are your credential levels. What job role that credential level could qualify someone for. The numbers of credentials awarded by credential level. So during this, since CDEC took over, we've awarded 7,155 credentials. That's crazy, right? And then also of note, and it's a good thing that Elaine said, hey, we should mention this too. Out of those, 4,157 were first-time credentials awarded. So what does that speak to? Well, it could speak to a couple of things. We're hoping that it speaks to recruitment for our field and support of UPK. And we'll see how that evidence is in the future, but we're hoping that happens, okay? So potential tax credits, these were the final two big values, the high-level overview. Over 25,000 credential levels have been reported to the Colorado Department of Revenue. Does that mean that 25,000 people are getting a tax credit? No. We have the 3 prongs that people need to comply with it for eligibility. But what it means is that's how many we transferred over. That's the data that was transferred over to the Department of Revenue, credential levels. 25,000 credential levels were transferred over. Now, what this means is a possibility of tax credits amounting to up to 29.9 million. So hopefully, as the legislation originally was written, this speaks to recovery from COVID, recruitment, retention, and then just kind of putting some extra money in the pockets of the folks out there that could really use it. Okay. All right. Okay. I have to mention everybody by name because if you were in it, you know what we went through. And I just want you to look at the names on this. Take a moment, please read the names. If this is your work neighbor, please thank them. I have thanked them over and over. They probably got sick of my thank yous, but it's the idea that they extended themselves beyond what they're supposed to do to help the early childhood professional. Here we go. I am actually allowing time to read this slide. Yay. Yep. Thank you so much, everybody, from the bottom of my heart for helping work through this project with me as a new project manager. To everybody that I mentioned initially, this is not about me. This is about these folks who extended themselves to make sure that the early childhood educator was recognized monetarily. And I'm hoping that the field feels the love as well and understands that we are thinking about them and trying to promote that that support financially. And hopefully at some point this is going to lead into wage compensation as well. Okay. All right. Thank you, project team. Okay. Finally, if you have questions about this, I'm here. Here is my email address. You know how to find me. So happy to be part of this project. So happy to build the work relationships and learn more about you, who you do, how hard you work, and just very, very grateful and in awe of what we accomplished. Thank you so much.
I am loving the celebration reactions. How fun. And I just got to shout out to our fearless leader, Brenda, who handled this project with patience and positivity and just made it seem easy and was always just giving us encouragement. So we really couldn't have done it without you, Brenda. And we are so grateful that you joined this team and that we're just so grateful for your leadership. You are the perfect person to have handled such a large project. So much appreciated.
Thank you, Charlie. I appreciate that as well.
Cool. All right. Lindsay, there you are. Hi. I love those flowers.
Hey, Charlie. Thanks. All right. So folks are hearing from the State Systems Building team quite a bit today. For those who I've not met, I'm Lindsay Dorneman, and I supervise that unit within our office, which of course includes preschool development grant birth through 5 and early childhood comprehensive systems grant work. So today I just want to give an update quickly on where we're at with the renewal grant as well as the new planning grant. For the renewal grant, that work technically ended on December 30th of 2022. However, we did receive a no-cost extension to run a limited number of strategies through 2023, as well as wrap up our evaluation work. So a number of these strategies had a late start, either due to COVID or procurement or hiring challenges. So we were able to justify that continued spending. That includes some work around continuing IT investments, continuing some work in terms of supporting early childhood consults and family resource centers, continuing work on transitions and really getting the transitions roadmap out into the field and developing some tools around that. The early childhood mental health support line will continue to be funded through PDG this year. And then looking at really some continued research and evaluation activities around QRIS, and then supporting a couple pilots around the FIND coaching and continuing to support children with delays in disability. Of those strategies, so I should take a step back and say PDG is running about 39 different strategies. So again, there's only a small portion that will continue under the grant, but there's a significant number that will be moving over to stimulus funding. Either they already did, or we'll have a mix of funds, and then they'll fully move over to that funding line later this year. So the work will not stop, even though PDG funding has not been continued for those activities. So it's really important just to remember that this work is still going to progress despite the grant. So some of those activities include the professional development investments, looking at early childhood mental health evaluation work, the quality nutrition work that Kristen spoke to earlier, our investments in developing business practices, of course, continues to move over. Our state regional coaching team will be supported through stimulus funding, as well as some IT work around the early childhood workforce data systems, and continuing to enhance the professional development information system. And then we have a handful of strategies that are considered complete. So these strategies were always intended to be one-time investments that were made under the Preschool Development Grant. And so a number of these were centered around building out IT infrastructure, building out tools, maybe piloting a project, but really designed for that one-time investment so there isn't any continued funding attached to these. There will be opportunities or perhaps a desire to continue this work, especially some of the pilot pieces, because there are lessons learned and opportunities, especially at the local level, to adopt that work and continue to move it forward. But right now, these are really the infrastructure pieces that we're considering done under the grant. So we'll continue to provide some updates around those strategies, but our attention is also looking forward to the new 2023 planning grant. I think folks have probably heard through meetings or newsletters or other ways that we were the recipient of a preschool development planning grant. What's interesting is the PDG was meant to be a one-time opportunity for states. However, Congress continues to fund the opportunity. And so federally, the legislation does not allow the government to extend renewal or implementation grants. However, it does not limit them from starting the process completely over. So what this award does is it really forces us to take a pause, to take a beat, and go back into that planning year mindset and really think about setting up ourselves for looking back, figuring out what we've learned, reassessing our early childhood landscape, revisiting our strategic plan, and then resetting ourselves for future investments, which does include an opportunity to recompete for a 3-year preschool development grant implementation grant. So over the next year, we have $3.9 million in new federal funding that will allow us to engage in planning activities. So just as a quick refresher, and I think I shared this last time I was here, but again, really the purpose is similar to the prior grants, is thinking about how we strengthen our early childhood system, how we increase access, how we support alignment and coordination. The one twist with this planning grant, or the one change, is really looking at how states have invested PDG grants prior and building on that work, and then there is a stronger lens on workforce activities. So for those who are with us back in 2019, you probably recall a pretty significant effort to support the creation of a statewide birth through 5 needs assessment. So we will be re-engaging a vendor to go back to that needs assessment and provide a comprehensive update. One thing I think is important to point out is our prior needs assessment really was more of this qualitative look at our early childhood system. So pulling in administrative data to really apply numbers to what we have and what we need. But we don't necessarily have a qualitative piece that tells a story behind why that need exists, or if there are preferences that are driving choices by families and others who are engaged with the early childhood system. So as we go through this next needs assessment, we'll continue to look at the qualitative side of early childhood. So again, really understanding what we have, what we need, and what those gaps are. But we want to do a much deeper dive into the qualitative side. And then we have some research questions already defined based on stakeholder feedback and where there were gaps in the 2019 needs assessment. But we'll also be engaging stakeholders probably in March, once our vendor is on board, to continue to identify where there may be some additional research questions that we need to explore through this effort. Once we complete our needs assessment or get a little bit closer to having them finalized, we'll engage in an update of the Colorado Shines Brighter statewide birth through 5 strategic plan. So as a reminder, this plan not only guided investments under PDG, but included about 20 or 30 different strategies that other state agencies or local partners we're also undertaking to move our state closer to the vision that all children are ready for school when entering kindergarten. So when we have that new data from the needs assessment, as we think about some of the new planning that's happening, including the department's strategic plan, as well as equity plans that are being developed by state and local partners, we want to start pulling all those pieces back in, taking a look, looking at our strategic plan, trying to understand, are these goals still relevant? Are these the right objectives that we're trying to achieve? And are these the best strategies to achieve that? So those planning efforts will be significant, and I'll talk a little bit about our stakeholder engagement work later. But in addition to those planning activities, we are able to set aside some funds to do a little bit of implementation work. And so there are 2 activities that we're able to engage in right away, and one is focused on maximizing family engagement in the birth through 5 system. And so there are opportunities that continue to exist to engage tribal families, as well as strengthen how family voice is incorporated into the state's decision making. So those will be 2 areas of focus, as well as looking at recommendations from the Home Visiting Investment Task Force to strengthen messaging around home visiting programming and hopefully increasing engagement in those programs. The second activity that we can invest in right away is supporting the birth through 5 workforce. So previously, this really focused more high level on developing the existing workforce and did not have a strong lens on the recruitment, retention, and compensation of a workforce. That is different this time around in terms of where planning grant funds may be directed. So we do have a number of activities that have a stronger lens on recruitment, retention, and compensation than we have in the past. So under this activity, we'll continue to build on our work around children's transitions. Kristen's going to continue her excellent work around building local organizational capacity. We are going to do some work around early childhood career ladders and qualifications to really align that system. And then we will do some work around expanding business practices support with a focus on coaching, which was feedback received from participants in those activities over the last 3 years. And then we get to the fun, which is regarding early childhood workforce compensation. So folks are probably aware that the department was running a compensation task force in late fall, winter of 2022. There is a report with some recommendations resulting from that task force. And so that report will be looked at, and we've set aside funds that allow us at our discretion to prioritize those recommendations and begin investing in that work using preschool development grant funds. We're also going to expand on the current Child Care Center compensation pilot and expand that to family child care homes. We will be doing some work around home visiting reimbursement policies to understand some inconsistencies and opportunities to support compensation through reimbursement policy. And then we'll also be supporting the home visiting workforce by expanding the current early care and education apprenticeship model to that workforce. Finally, we want to look at lessons learned from Senate Bill 213, which is providing pretty significant investment in early intervention, home visiting, and early childhood mental health workforces to also understand the challenges facing them and opportunities to help support ongoing building of that workforce or those workforces. So activity 5 is a tricky one. That one's about program quality improvement. And so that can mean a lot of things, including developing new programs, investing in classrooms, supporting quality standards. So it's really a broad category, but it's one that we actually cannot expend any dollars on until we've completed our needs assessment strategic plan. And the reason for that is they really want these investments to be informed by that data and the needs of the state. So we have some preliminary ideas around things we've heard from stakeholders or that have emerged in research and evaluation activities to date. But just know that some of these investments are subject to change once that needs assessment and strategic plan are completed. Some other things PDG will fund next year include ongoing work for program evaluations. There is an early childhood workforce technical assistance TA center being developed at the federal level. So we're setting aside funds for individuals to be able to participate in those activities. And then we're projecting on needing 3 staff to help support the activities identified in the grant. So we'll have a preschool development grant 4 through 5 project coordinator. We will have a new workforce coordinator to provide some support to our workforce division staff, as well as a workforce data analyst to help inform and study those efforts. So our next steps, the most important one will be developing our stakeholder engagement plan. And so starting to identify some opportunities for us to engage with communities, whether it's creating like a town hall structure, or if it's already, pushing into existing meetings such as State TA Day and other meetings to start engaging our partners in these planning processes. And once again, we expect a lot of this work to kick off in March. We're developing a lot of our contracts right now, but most of the planning work will begin in March in partnership with vendors. So I know that was fast, and I know Charlie's sending out slides so you can do a little more of a deep dive into the content on those. I don't know if there's time for questions, but I'll hang out and watch the chat if there are any.
I do think we have a couple minutes for questions, if anyone has. I'm not seeing any. So, any other general questions too? I'll just throw out. All right. Well, there has been a lot of information shared today. I know we're all kind of need to process some of that. We do have our office hours here in the chat. I'm gonna, for E&E, I'll be posting these on the agenda too. And again, everybody has a link to the agenda on the calendar invite. It shows up kind of small, but there's always a link on the calendar invite for State TA Day. I'll be sending out the meeting recording as well as the agenda by Monday at the latest. And I guess if there is nothing else, I will be super generous and give everybody 5 minutes back into their day. Thank you all for joining us. Again, I know there was a ton of information. Thank you to all the presenters. And thank you all for the fabulous work you're doing to support the families and children of Colorado. Really appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your day and a wonderful weekend.